Ukraine is Europe already, de facto, since our people are fighting and dying for European values. Maybe time to put things proper way de jure. Good afternoon, this is Henry Keane on UATV English, doing my best to give you the hard truth in easy terms as always, from Ukraine for the whole free world. The President of the European Parliament Roberta Metsola and the Chairman of the Verkhovna Rada Ruslan Stefanchuk signed on Tuesday, November 28th, an update memorandum on mutual understanding between the Verkhovna Rada and the European Parliament.
This is an important and symbolic step in further strengthening our long-standing relations. It is also a practical way in which we, as the European Parliament, can help Ukraine prepare for EU accession. This partnership will be further reinforced by our decision to establish a permanent European Parliament presence in Kiev.
Good for all of us. The President of the European Parliament emphasized that by signing the updated memorandum, the EU is strengthening parliamentary ties with Ukraine. Metsola also noted the importance of the need to continue to provide support to Ukraine, military support in particular, through the European Peace Facility, and also from member states on a bilateral basis. We must agree on a new $50 billion fund for Ukraine as soon as possible, she said. In addition, Roberta Metsola noted the tremendous efforts of Ukraine and, in particular, the Verkhovna Rada to solve all the tasks of opening negotiations on accession to the European Union. The European Parliament hopes and expects a positive decision from the European Council this December. In conclusion, the message of the EU sounded in easy terms like this: the European Parliament will continue to support Ukraine as long as necessary. Also, at the request of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the European Parliament intends to open an office in Kiev. According to the chairman of the Verkhovna Rada Ruslan Stefanchuk, there will be a plan developed on how to turn a memorandum into reality. At the same time, the head of Ukrainian diplomacy, Dmytro Kuleba, noted that the government is systematically working to ensure that the decision of the European Council regarding our country's accession to the European Union is positive.
I came to thank allies for continued support, for standing by Ukraine, and to deliver a message of the importance to ramp up significantly production of weapons, ammunition, and other military equipment across the board. We need to create a Euro-Atlantic common area of defense industries. This is the only way not only to continue helping Ukraine at sufficient level, but also to ensure security and defense capabilities of NATO countries themselves.
And one more detail on the theme, if you allow. President of the European Council, Charles Michel, flew to Budapest to convince, that's right, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban to support the EU's further course of assistance for Ukraine. The trip takes place against the backdrop of a letter from the Hungarian Prime Minister to the President of the European Council, where Orban threatens to block both support for Ukraine and its negotiations on accession to the EU, a political decision on which EU leaders can make at their December summit. Orban wrote on Twitter X that the meeting was useful, without giving other details. I hope we all will see soon what that means. One thing is clear for now: when Ukraine will become a part of Europe, both de facto and de jure, and the European community will then be strengthened by a nation that proved a deterrence to the ideals and human values the same community shares in the greatest trial of them all, in a times of war. The American digital newspaper Politico has chosen Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the president of Ukraine, as the most influential person in Europe in the Dreamers category. As per Politico and me, by the way, this year Zelenskyy has managed to push through things that were until recently unthinkable, moving Ukraine to the front of the line for EU membership and closer than anyone thought possible to NATO military alliance. But 2024 is promising to be difficult because the world is distracted by the new old war in the Middle East. Ukrainians are exhausted by 2 years of battles and struggling to reclaim territory in the face of Russia's brutal meat grinder. Media notes that with the West prevaricating and Ukraine continuing to face existential threat from its much larger neighbor, Zelenskyy has moved from pleading with the Western countries for help to lecturing them, and that hasn't landed quite as successfully as his more uplifting orations. The article also mentions the prospect of elections in Ukraine in 2024, stating that Zelenskyy would need to amend the country's constitution in order to hold a ballot. But in reality, Ukrainian constitution can't be changed during the martial law, dear Politico. And moreover, we don't need any changes because according to the laws of Ukraine, there can be no ballot at all during martial law. Politico claims that this possibility raises, I quote, major questions about democratic legitimacy. End of quote. And I would rather raise major questions about safety and adequacy of any ballot at a time of war. And if our Western partners really want the elections so much in Ukraine, I have a proposition. Close the skies over Ukraine for just one day of a ballot, and then election will take place safely. Well, according to Politico, Zelenskyy doesn't have a lot on the to-do list, like only sustain democratic legitimacy and hold a ballot while winning the war. Well, one thing is clear according to Politico themselves. Zelenskyy already managed to push through unthinkable once. So maybe we should all together just put some more trust in our president these days, so next year Politico can call him the most influential achiever, not only a dreamer. The Institute for the Study of War says Russian President Vladimir Putin signed the law on the federal budget for 2024-2026, which provides for record spending on the war, and maybe not just with Ukraine. In the speech on November 28th, Putin reaffirmed the concept of a so-called Russian identity, whatever that means, which allegedly consists of two parts. The Russian nation, which is said to include Russians, Ukrainians and Belarusians, is the center of Russian identity. And the wider Russian world, which includes other non-East Slavic ethnic groups, both in modern Russia and in the former territories of the Soviet Union. I mean, I love that. The idea of Russian greatness. The Tsar himself drives armored Mercedes-Benz, and all of his pocket oligarchs are hiding their billions of dollars. Still, they consider themselves great Russians. And even the terrifying fact that Russian murdering army is killing Ukrainians in Ukraine right now is not stopping the delusional Russian Tsar from calling us one nation. How disgusting and outrageous that is. Also, Putin signed a decree that significantly increases Russia's spending in 2024, including record spending on the military and defense industrial complex. The federal budget for 2024 foresees $412 billion in public spending. The report notes that Russia's finance military has reportedly allocated $72 billion to defense, or I would say military purpose, in 2023, although the figure is quite likely way higher, given that much of the Russian budget is classified, and I very much wonder why is that. About a third or more of the federal budget goes to defense, war spending. A record level for such spending, according to analysts. However, the federal budget does not cover all of Russia's war spending, as the Kremlin really relies on regional budgets and private business structures to increase funding for the ongoing military effort. The draft budgets for 25 and 26 years foresee roughly the same large expenditures as the 2024 budget, $387.9 billion and $404 billion, respectively, indicating that the Kremlin plans to allocate a significant portion of its spending to support the protracted war in Ukraine. And obviously, the Russian nation does all that is possible to turn a blind eye on most everything their Tsar does. This is exactly what the new Kremlin's paradigm calls a Russian greatness. It was Henry Keane on UATV English, hoping to give you the hard truth in easy enough terms on our daily wrap-up today. Comment, like and subscribe. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Your opinion matters a lot to us. Stay safe and tune for more already tomorrow.